the smart locker that knew his code, the night the gym turned the lights low. At 9:11 p.m., my phone insisted I'd checked into a gym I hadn't visited in weeks. "Welcome, Marco," said the banner from an app I keep only because convenience and denial speak the same language. Smart Locker opened. Recovery Suite Pod 7 reserved 9/30/10/15. Need towels. The message included a tiny video, a neat little loop of a locker door pivoting open. For 3 frames, the camera caught a shoulder I knew like music. His jacket navy, the cuff scuffed by the same careless affection that ruins me. He'd left it 8 in that jacket, the one that flatters him even when mirrors decide to fast. "Wrap toast," he said, 2 words that make celebration sound like a calendar item. Then notes with Nolan, "Don't wait." Nolan works sound. He wears stillness like it's part of the uniform and carries microphones as if they're small, difficult truths. The apartment refused to narrate me. The oven kept a cinnamon thing warm because I like to trick rooms into thinking sweetness is a plan. I set the phone face down the way we promised to on decent mornings, then turned it over again because if you're going to misbehave, you should use the proper form. The locker video looped once more. Pod 7 kept its appointment. Stratus Athletic is one of those 24-hour temples that teach people to respect their reflections. Brass behaves on the doors. The lobby smells like lemon being patient. On the wall behind the desk, a constellation of screens performs competence in real time. Heart rates, lane reservations, a polite suggestion that recovery starts with honesty. The attendant glanced up with the practiced mercy of a person who counts confessions like tips and spends neither in public. I flashed my membership QR and didn't give him an opportunity to remember my name. The locker hall is a hush of climate control and ambition. Light lives here. It sits in long, reconsidered strips along the floor and makes everyone look like the version of themselves they want strangers to remember. Locker yawned when I turned the corner, door already open, polite as guilt. Inside, among the folded towel and the knit cap he forgets he owns, a navy cuff brushed the shelf, proof of possession, a lynch shadow you wouldn't see unless your chest had already decided. I could have waited. I could have closed the door and chosen to be the kind of man who lets the night do its work without notes. Instead, I followed the quiet toward the recovery suite, where the air smells faintly of eucalyptus and second chances. A corridor of doors, each with a little light the color of a promised apology. Pod 7 glowed. Through its small square window I could make out the edge of a heated table, a countertop with 2 tumbler glasses, and a carafe doing a better job at restraint than most people I know. He stood with his jacket off, shirt open 1 notch beyond daylight, talking to Nolan in the register that refuses to apologize for being private. There is a half-second at the beginning of surprise when truth arrives without its coat. I saw it land across his face when he looked through the glass. "Alex," he said when he stepped out, my name softened to a receipt. Nolan lingered in the seam behind him, not moving, perfecting the only art I still respect, becoming furniture when a scene doesn't belong to you. "Your locker and I are on speaking terms," I said, because humor is the leash I use to keep panic from bolting. I held up the screen. It delivered your evening like a parcel. Nolan glanced once toward the ceiling puck that pretends not to be a camera, then back at me with the professional competence of a man auditioning for the role of absence. "I can give you the pod," he said, not a plea, a solution. He looked over Marco's shoulder and added, mostly to the air, "You're louder with him." It hurt correctly. It also did the math I'm best at. "Not here," Marco said. He tipped his head down the hall, toward the service exit that opened onto a narrow balcony of concrete and night air, a kind of neutral no one ever thinks to brand. There's a spot by the vent where the wind minds its own business. There is a sound only rooftop HVAC makes, a reasonable hum that pretends the world is fixable if you keep breathing. We stood by the metal lip where the building tries not to lose its temper. The city below rehearsed being difficult without us. The recovery pod glow sifted out through the crack in the door and drew a soft rectangle on the floor like punctuation. "I lied when I left," he said. He doesn't waste adjectives when he wants to be correct. Rap happened. People used their best grammar on goodbye. I told myself I wanted 30 minutes where being interesting didn't have to pass inspection. "Nalen," I said, because names are handles and I like my hands full when the floor decides to move. He nodded. Nalen did nothing like a professional, present, kind, undecorative. "Are you sleeping with him?" The question is a cliff. There isn't a scenic route. You count to one and make your mouth earn its keep. "Not yet," he said, clean, immediate. Then lower, the honesty that knows exactly which muscle wants to bruise. I brought my mouth. Wind found the opening at my collar and decided to stay. I lifted 2 fingers to the soft place at his wrist where men keep their apologies and felt his pulse write my name there without permission. His eyes closed like doors that expect hands. At the small of his back, where his body keeps its best arguments, heat had already done the work it always does, and my palm remembered its job. "You like wanting that proves something kindness can't," I said. "I didn't make it cruel. Cruelty is the lazy cousin of precision. You treat intimacy like a sport and honesty like off-season training." "You like to coach," he said, one corner of his mouth trying and failing to be a bad idea. "Which is unfair, and why we're not 2 histories pretending to share a bed." "What do you want?" I asked. Now not the apology you drafted for daylight. He stepped into the inch that would become a lie if we left it unattended. Heat crossed cotton the way forgiveness sometimes does when you draw it a map. He spoke so close punctuation found my lower lip. "I want to go home," he said. "I want you to want me where our towels remember us and desire isn't booked in 15-minute increments." Behind us, someone laughed at a television no one was watching. Nalan's silhouette receded like a good decision, choosing not to make itself famous. The corridor lights dimmed a notch as if the building were practicing discretion. I lifted Marco's chin with the 2 fingers that have learned what they're for and kissed him. Not hunger first, relief. Relief is the kind of appetite you can escort down a hallway without asking strangers to pick sides. He leaned into it like a debt that finally likes its math. He made that low sound he cannot perform on cue, the sound that convinces me our kitchen is holy. The glass in the door threw our outlines onto the concrete, thinner than truth. I used my mouth to fix the ratio. I stopped before the night could pretend to be a witness. He kept his forehead near mine because punctuation outperforms grammar when the air is cold. We walked back through the lobby with the rhythm of men practicing being gentler than their insecurities. The attendant did not look up. Mercy is a profession here. Outside, weather declined to narrate us. I loved it for that. At home, the cinnamon had kept faith with ridiculous loyalty. We ate it at the counter with our fingers because forks would have lied. He leaned against the drawer that sticks, the posture that means he is willing to be moved and wants me to be exact. I slid my palm under his shirt and found heat like an address that still knows our names. He tipped into me, gratitude making him heavy and precise. We were careful in bed. Not the kind of careful that kills heat, the kind that knows where to fold it, how to keep the room from becoming evidence. He knows where to set his palm on my ribs so the rest of me turns without issuing a press release. I know where his shoulder hides when it doesn't want to confess, and how to coax it into telling the truth with weight and breath and a mouth that has stopped trying to rescue him and still wants him. I won't draw you choreography. I'll tell you, the room remembered to breathe, and the morning forgave us because it had other work. We slept the sleep with terms and conditions. Light shouldered through the blinds like a suggestion that refuses to be shy. He made coffee the way he does when he wants me to listen. I opened the window and let the day put its hands on my face. The locker app still glowed between us like a witness who thought math could keep a secret. He started with small truths because small truths keep larger ones upright. The notes had run long. The pod made the city feel negotiable. Nolan's attention had the grammar he wanted to try on. Then he ran out of script and said the part I could keep. He said he is tired of being interesting for a living, tired of being curated, captioned, archived. He said he wanted to be wanted like teenagers are: stupid, earnest, badly lit, forgiven in advance. He said he imagined my mouth more than once against that door and hated the math. He said he was sorry like a man who knows sorry is a tool, not an eraser. I didn't forgive him at the counter. Forgiveness is a daylight animal and morning's charge. I told him to put on the coat that doesn't belong to institutions and walk with me to the canal where water lies about Paris, and we let it. We sat on the bench we like. Pigeons performed competence. A runner's breath taught our bodies cadence we could afford. He hooked his thumb in my pocket like humility. I let him. 2 afternoons later, I saw Nolan in the lobby of a screening room that smells like lemon and ambition. He gave me the nod men give when they've chosen to be furniture on purpose. He didn't apologize and I didn't deputize. We shared an elevator mirror that wrote our names backward and required no translation. It isn't that we agreed. It's that we learned how to read ourselves both ways. The app still sends tidy banners in fonts that know nothing about anything. I don't trust their enthusiasm or my inbox. I trust the square of light at 4 when it climbs our wall like an idea that finally put on shoes. I trust the heat beneath his shirt at the small of his back when my hand remembers its job. And if a smart locker ever opens its mouth for me again, I'll do what I did the night the gym turned the lights low. Find air, choose kissing over theater, walk him home with my palm resting on the part of him that knows the address, and keep teaching our door, gentle, stubborn, local, to open from the inside.